Today's term from psychology is the G.I. Joe fallacy. Some of you are old enough to remember the 1980s cartoon series G.I. Joe. Each episode ended with a rather cheesy public service announcement that concluded, "Now you know, and knowing is half the battle." If that was really true, then the more knowledge we have about a decision we need to make, the better the decision should be, right? Well, not exactly. In the real world, the problem with having knowledge that relates to a decision we have to make is that we usually just ignore that knowledge when we make that decision. Knowing isn't half the battle if you ignore what you know. In fact, it's barely a small fraction of the battle at best. This is particularly true when it comes to the cognitive biases that shape human and animal behavior alike. We need to stop here for a moment and explain what a cognitive bias is. Think of a cognitive bias as a mental app that evolved hundreds of thousands or even millions of years ago to help our remote ancestors survive in a hostile world. Each of these apps automatically springs into action in a particular situation without any conscious thought on our part. This automatic behavior allowed our remote ancestors to make fast decisions when making a fast decision was more important to their survival than making an accurate one. For most of the time humans have been on this earth, these automatic behaviors, these apps, help them survive. We are aware of and have identified a large number of these cognitive bias apps. We can even tell you when and how they come into play in our daily lives. The problem is that even someone trained to spot and identify cognitive bias apps will still fall victim to them even while being fully aware they are happening. So, in a very real way, even knowing about the G.I. Joe fallacy does nothing to help prevent us from falling victim to it. This is because what you consciously know has little to do with your behavior. Logic and reason, at least for the most part, don't even come into play. Behavior is almost entirely controlled subconsciously by your emotions, and emotions exist on a much more primal level than logic or reason. Recent work in cognitive science has confirmed all this. Knowing is a shockingly tiny portion of most real-world decisions. You may know that $19.99 is pretty much the same as $20, but it still feels like a significantly better price. You may know a prisoner's guilt is independent of whether you are hungry or not, but he'll still seem like a better candidate for parole when you've had a snack. And you may know that a tasty piece of fudge shaped like dog poop will taste delicious, but most people would still be hesitant to eat it. You might think that this is old news. After all, thinkers for the past 2,500 years have been pointing out that much of human action isn't under rational control. Shouldn't we know by now that the G.I. Joe fallacy is just that, a fallacy? Well, yeah, we should. But there you are. Simply recognizing that the G.I. Joe fallacy exists is not sufficient for avoiding its grasp. So now you know, and that's probably not going to make any difference at all.